Oh, fun. See, and I laugh about it now because we're all playing these characters. Life is full of evil and bad and everything ugly, but it's also full of strength and heroism and beauty and kindness and loyalty. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know. And somewhere in between there is nirvana.
Today, I'd like to do something a little different. And rather than just jumping into another modality of specific healing, I'd like to zoom out a little bit. When we're talking about healing or awakening, or even about the path of our lives, sooner or later we have to look at ourselves. That's like self-knowledge, self-understanding, the shape of self. And I mean that in a few ways. Obviously, not just the physical shape, although that can be important, especially some modalities and for understanding your mind. But I mean, like, where's our borders? What are our tendencies? What is our character? How do we interpret things through our unique minds? So it's this art of studying the self. What shape have we taken? But it also can be a verb to shape the self actively. And I think there's a lot of tension we can experience between that full acceptance and loving ourselves exactly for who we are, warts and all, versus wanting to be different, wanting to get into shape, wanting to actively find healing or self-cultivation. So with that in mind, I'd like to call today's episode The Shape of Self, Stories of Self-Knowledge, Awakening, and Healing. Our guest is going to be Michael Casari, who's been a friend and a mentor and a teacher of mine for many, many years. And he spent the better part of his life looking into all of these aspects of self-understanding. One of the things I like about him and why I've invited him on is that he shares observations that are very unique and can be a little bit subversive or even challenging. But he shares these with the heart of a storyteller using very practical daily habits and observations, which ultimately, you have to admit, is where the real work happens. He also studied and learned with a teacher that I've not talked about much on this show yet named Richard Rose. If you hear references to Mr. Rose, that was Michael's primary teacher from when he was in his 20s. We'll come back to that. So for now, let's go talk with Michael Casari, see how he's doing, and we'll get some stories of healing and stories of awakening with a life spent in the sometimes arduous pursuit of self-understanding. We'll start off learning a little bit about Michael and hear stories of his time with Mr. Rose. And in the second half, we'll get into some more sharing notes and trading notes about healing and awakening. This is The Shape of Self.
Every family has a hero. Every family has a villain. The family is the microcosm of society, or maybe I should say that the society is the macrocosm of the family. You know, I didn't know that at the time, except that I was a very troubled child. You know, I was abused. My father was a carpenter, and I was one of 6 kids, and there was a childhood accident and I ended up having to have 2 eye surgeries, and I was a weird kid after that one.
Did you know you were weird back then? Did you have that feeling or that sense?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did, and I remember the moment that it struck me. See, this is what's weird about me. I can relive that exact moment right now. I'm there on Mrs. Westrick's porch because in the wintertime, I think I had 38 customers. We had a big route, about 80. So I had 2 bags full of papers, Sunday papers. And she came out, and nobody was up. It was almost dark, but she happened to be up that morning, and she came out and opened the door, and she surprised me, and she said, "Wow, well, hi, Mike, how are you?" and it stopped my head, and all I could do was just, hi, Mike, hi. She literally stopped my head, see? And at that moment, because I had nothing to say. I couldn't respond, see? I could not respond with my paper boy responses. See, I lost my identity as a paper boy right that moment, and that separated me from it. And I still remember, I can still see it. See, I think in pictures, I can still see it, and the porch and this and everything, and that was a blessing. That was a blessing. But
one of the topics we'd written down was like, you and I haven't talked much about this, but I view my childhood as idyllic, interestingly, like so lucky, so fortunate. And you've, in retrospect, seen yours as having a lot of suffering, a lot of challenging elements. You can put the right adjective on it as you like, but the suffering side. So it's interesting to me how people from such different backgrounds, like what brings people to spirituality? Why are you into this so strongly, and maybe not some of your siblings?
Well, I see. I think that is, and then later on we can discuss destiny, and if you look at your life as, from a long way away and look all the way back. But I think what brings people to it is unhappiness. They sense that they're just not happy. And because, otherwise, or curiosity, there are some, and those are the prodigies who end up doing prodigious things. And, but mostly it's not happy. And in my case, I think I know a lot more about suffering than I know about awakening. That's the truth of it. And, it's not a fun life to be
neurodivergent.
Neurodivergent. Yeah, I'm thinking neurotypical. No, certainly anything but neurotypical. But it's not fun. It is not fun. It can be. And I went to Catholic school, St. Joseph's in Canton, Ohio. I was a hero at school. I was the smartest kid in class. In the 6th grade, Sister Marita, I would, on the playground, I brought the beanbag, and then I was, we'd pick teams, and I was like, so in my gang, I was the leader of the gang. But then when we get in the projects in class, she would always pair me with a guy named Donald Roth. And Donald Roth was MR, or very near that. And nobody wanted to be with Donald Roth, and she always put me with him, and finally I went to her and I complained, and she says, I figure, and see, these are I look back on this stuff and it just makes me weep because, it's painful. See, this is painful. I said, I don't want to be with Donald Roth. And she said, well, I figure if you can lead a whole gang of boys around the playground every day with a beanbag, you could at least help Donald with his arithmetic. And I look back, I said, how could I be that way? See, that's education. Yeah. And if your education doesn't hurt, you're not getting an education. Pain takes you much deeper than pleasure, much deeper. I've had fun on building things, but learning how to build things wasn't that much fun.
Right.
So, like you can play that. You said I used to be pretty good on piano. I bet you there were times when you wanted to throw it out the window if you could.
Yes.
Yeah. See. In the long run, my father really did me a big favor, because my father taught me how to get things done and get them done right and get it done now, and don't stop until you do, or you're gonna feel it. See,
yeah.
He literally hammered it into me. I love the old guy. Yeah, she was around.
You are attracted to people who have fine workmanship. This has been a strong point that you appreciate. And you would even regard them as a guru, someone who's a master of their art or of their craft.
I can tell you exactly why. I'll tell you exactly why. The Fabergé eggs. Have you ever looked at those? Gone online and looked at them? And there's people that there's documentary videos and stuff. Can you imagine what it would take? How much ego could you possibly retain doing that for the czar, because he could have you fed to a bear in the town square if he wanted to,
Right.
And these people, those types of people, you cannot have an ego present while you're doing that. Okay, well, what is the major obstacle between being awake with a capital A and being asleep is that the people that are asleep believe that they are, Joe Schmo. And they don't realize that they're just a finger of God, so to speak, See, this covers all domains across athletics, gym, especially like Olympic grade, athletics and stuff. Your ego, you can't be egoic about it and be totally absorbed. Total absorption is freedom, see, because you've dissolved yourself. Yeah.
Before we come back to speak with Michael, I do want to note that anytime we think about our childhoods, you're going to have to look at the things that were good about it and the things that felt like they didn't support you for who you'd rather be. And of course, a lot of people also go through very challenging times or even traumatic times. So there's going to be some allusions to that in the upcoming segment. That's not the focus. We'll probably do a different episode more focused on that sort of material. But I just wanted to mention that before we speak again with Michael. So let's get back to his next chapter of life.
Things kind of broke up, I went to high school. I skipped a grade, which really caused me to emotionally. That really crumbled me. Going from the sixth grade, being the smartest kid, going to the eighth grade with the bullies with the Stetsons and the horseshoe cleats that kept wanting to get my homework, and then the girls, they all had they had breasts and they wore skirts, and it's like, man, I was lost. I was absolutely lost. And then in high school, it was there were bullies in high school. I was a smart kid, but there was one kid. It seems, So what that told me was, I had to learn how to, keep from going crazy. And I went to see the Catholic priest. But my homeroom teacher as a senior was a pedophile. And this is sad. This is Central Catholic High School in Canton, Ohio. And I'm going to say his name because there's still people that hate this man, because they abused him. His name was Father Robert Hill. And he lived in the rectory. He was my homeroom teacher. And, this guy's here in your confession. I thought I was committing mortal sins. See, I really did. I really did. And then I'd go to, and he'd say, and well, exactly what did you think? And he'd want all the details. And this guy had been shifted not once, but twice. And then you find out this is what happened. So you can't, and like Rose was saying, with your spiritual life, you have to trust somebody, But there was a good thing. There was my homeroom Father Peter. He believed, he was passionate. and and he liked me, and he wanted me to become a Christian brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I thought about that for a while, and so I ended up going to college, but I really never knew why my head worked so differently from other people. I tried to get therapy. I had therapy, man.
I was curious, yeah, if you ever actually, before or maybe after Rose, your experience with Rose, did you ever intentionally seek healing or therapy? And
Well, not after,
mm-hmm.
before. By this time, I'd probably taken, I don't know how many hits of acid and stuff. And, I had been places mentally and psychically. I guess psychic's the right word, psychically. Yeah. My mind had been expanded. I was no dummy. I was just going crazy. That's all. I was just going crazy. And I'm looking for help. There it is. See, It was pretty simple. I'm looking for somebody. Lend me a hand. And so I get assigned a counselor, and I couldn't explain anything to her because it would be like you trying to explain to me how all this technology that you're involved in, you don't waste your time, and she was, so that didn't work. And then my mother hooked me up with there was there was a hypnotist. He was a priest somewhere else, and I could have hypnotized him better than he could hypnotize me because I was aware. This is just the way it happened. Unfortunately, I didn't know I was on a spiritual path. I didn't know that. See, I just knew, it was just kind of a blind searching, like you're in a desert and you're looking for one of them cactuses that's full of water or whatever, or you look under every rock,
Yeah.
And this is in retrospect, but I couldn't help but do it because, got to do something. You got to do something. This goes back to. I knew I was different than other people, and for a long time I had no clue. And I don't know. I didn't realize I might have been autistic. I thought I was autistic because
did they have that concept or term back then? Like, was that a known label?
Asperger's that's an interesting question. I don't even know that they do or did. And for a long time I had no clue. And then I heard Temple Grandin. Are you familiar with Temple? I heard the tail end of an interview with her, and she said it's simple. I think in pictures, and that just clicked with me. You're out in the desert or you're lost somewhere, and you finally find a road sign. And I followed all that up, read all her books, and I was satisfied with that for quite a while.
If I may, I'm noticing a theme here. I just want to run it by you and see what you think. But first of all, you said falling in love with everyone. So you have a very strong, open heart. And even in your recent years, you've talked about the poignancy of seeing love from the father to the son and the baseball. And yet you also have a lot of shared stories from younger years of what feels like either betrayal or something you just can't trust these institutions. Be that, maybe your father, or be that the Catholic Church, or be that, psychology, institutional psychology.
Right.
And so all of these sort of let you down in some way. And maybe Rose was someone that finally, like, you were actually searching for someone that you could truly, deeply trust and, take to, that wouldn't let you down,
Without a doubt, because like I said, I went to the priest, and then I went to the local mental health. Rose was my last hope.
Now would probably be as good a time as any to pause and give a brief introduction about Richard Rose. The very nutshell version is that he was born in the 19 teens in West Virginia. And basically the story as it's handed down now is that he was very driven to find the truth of who he is, of his essence. So he put all he could into his spiritual search. And as often is the case when you hear about these stories, when he basically just gave up, exhausted, he had a life-changing realization about who he was and his absolute self, as he called it. And then he dedicated his life to passing that realization forward. So in the late 60s and especially the 70s and 80s, he poured himself into being a spiritual teacher and ran a spiritual group in the panhandle of West Virginia, in the vicinity of Ohio and Pittsburgh, and gathered many students at the time, which still runs to this day and holds meetings that are dedicated toward the kind of Zen style spiritual awakening. All that info you can find in the show notes, but Michael joined the group in the early to mid 70s, and it was very foundational to his life and path. So let's pick back up hearing how Michael first met Mr. Rose.
The talk was at Kent State University. I was sitting all the way in the back of the room on the floor, leaning against the wall, and there were people packed in like sardines all the way, and I couldn't see, but I could hear. And the first thing he said, I remember he said, "Does the man own the house, or does the house own the man?" Which is a real interesting question, but it was his tone of voice, and it just struck a perfect middle C in me, if I could say it that way, or something. And I can still hear it to this day, and it's in his voice. That was my connection. Phil Frana then called me the next week or something, and he said, "You want to go down and meet Mr. Rose?" And Phil Frana, God, I love you, Phil. Where are you? I love you. He drove me down there. We went down, and I met Rose for the first time. That also, how would I describe him? First of all, here's how he described himself. A West Virginia hillbilly, it looks like Burl Ives with the mange, and he was a West Virginia hillbilly, and, he was a fighter, but he was also a man driven by a passion to answer, why was he here? Where's God? He had Rose's determination never wavered, never wavered. He was, nobody backed Rose down. Nobody backed Rose down, because he was dedicated to his life to truth, and he wanted, his mission. Like there's a lot of talk nowadays on the news about missions. He was that way with his mission.
Yes.
He'd say, plan, wait for the signs, and go like hell. That's his advice. Who was he to me? I think he was a different person to every student. He was a father to me, and I was a son to him. I don't know. He was somebody that you're real fortunate to run across. Yeah.
You eventually built a cabin. How did that? What happened?
I built a cabin. Yeah. Well, you could buy a lot, a half-acre lot, and I paid for mine, and Rose stuck me on the edge there, right over the fence line from the Kirschnight property. The whole thing was, it was out of a movie, because it was, let's see, this 50 years ago. And it was so, and then, the Kirschnights were down the road, and they had $5 million worth of earth moving equipment from little boys and girls selling flowers in airports, and they were building a palace, and the roof is gold leaf, a palace of gold, and Rose didn't throw away rusty bent nails on rainy days. We straightened them out sitting on the porch. You had a hammer and you straightened bent nails. Then you put them in tin cans. And then when you're down there nailing all those boards on that roof, you're they're straightened bent nails or straightened rusty nails that you hold with vice grips and drive one. You have to be so careful. So the amount of attention that demanded out of all those young hippies in the early group, that amount of attention grew them, gave them more essence, more power. See, because they accomplished something, instead of just, love flows in the, everything flows. He said,
Right.
well, go with the flow. He said, what flows? The gutter, So describing Rose, he was every card in the major arcana in the deck. He could be the Joker, the King, the
Magician.
whatever, the Knight, whatever. Yeah, he was the toughest guy I ever met and the kindest guy I ever met.
You can find more information about Mr. Rose, as well as the ongoing work of the TAT Foundation at tatfoundation.org. And a lot of the original students of Rose are still carrying that work forward with group meetings, retreats, newsletters, books, and other material. But like anything, all things come to an end, and Michael eventually had to say goodbye to the farm. Let's hear what happened.
When I left the group for good, when I moved west, I had $100 and my van load full of tools. That's all I had, $100, And I opened the paper, and there's like 30 jobs for carpenters, cabinet makers, woodworkers, and I just go down. I went through a half a dozen jobs in the first month. One guy wanted me to wear a heavy leather tool belt loaded with tools in the shop working. He says, you never take your bags off. I said, I don't wear my bags in the shop. Well, this is the guy that hired me,
Yep.
And I said, I won't do it. Another guy wanted to stand over me and watch me while I'm cutting. I said, I can't work with you over my shoulder. And that's just what I'd say. Here's a true story. I have worked successfully at over 60, that's SIXTY, places of employment all across this country, as either a carpenter, a salesman, an x-ray orderly, a maintenance man, whatever, grooming, cleaning stalls, or behind the counter. I worked retail at J.C. Penney's. I did end up going to college. I was at Kent. I dropped out as a senior. It took me 19 years to get my bachelor's. I got undergrad degrees with psychology and philosophy with honors in both. And I had a 3.96 GPA. I forget which scoundrel gave me a B.
I was going to say, which one was the B?
The B was history of psychology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just in the final exam, I had an A going, but in 1918, and
I think you still have mixed relationships with the history of psychology at this point. Mixed feelings.
But see, this is just another. What kind of adventure? You could make a comic book out of that, and they made a movie out of it. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I have lived that. I have lived that. I knew I was damaged goods, and I was never going to ever. I spent my whole life wanting to be normal, pretending as best I could to be normal in any situation. And that is kind of hard to imagine. See, heaven and ego, people love themselves. I hated myself. I used to say you get what you deserve in life, and I thought, well, shit. I must deserve this. See, it's like something you just said, or that Jim Burns said,
Yeah.
it wasn't my fault. See,
Right.
it wasn't my fault that I wanted, and that I pulled these fast ones. And I think this stuff's important. Just to how your mind works and how inspiration works and how close. If you just would think one more thought, the tumbler would click. If you would just relax your grip on your need to be in control, maybe, see, that's salvation. If I look at it in the long run, this was my choice. Like Rose used to say, it's the blueprint. It's the blueprint. And then you go, who wrote the blueprint? And he'd say, you did, way back. And I laugh about it now because we're all playing these characters. So I look at this and I chose this. And it's been, every day I put my hands together and I thank God, and I'm so happy, Lord, thank you. And it doesn't matter, it just hits me. I am happy. But I wouldn't, no one would want to be me. No one I've ever met. Then, well, we are all unique fingers of the sun, aren't we? No one I've ever met, no one would want to be me. And I know people I would not want to be. I met a couple of years ago, when I lived in Bryn Mawr with Gail, and my van had a problem, and some guy came, I had AAA, and the guy came with the big roll off, or roll on or whatever, and he pulled it up on there, and I was going to ride with him to the garage. And he was a short, stocky guy, and he was the happiest guy I'd ever run across. I mean, he was a former POW in Vietnam.
Wow.
They poured these, they had concrete hollow tubes, 8 feet wide, 30 feet deep. And you were in the bottom. And there were rows of them. You were in the bottom. And he was down there for, I think he told me, 2 years.
Oh, my God.
They would piss on you. They would shit on you. They would just do, yeah. And, he got out. See, and he got out. And so, the depth of suffering, this guy, nothing was going to take this guy off his happy game. He had found a way to be happy. There's no limit to the ecstasies that a human mind can conceive, and there's no limit to the depravities that a human mind can conceive. And so that's duality. You want to reach a balance, and everything eventually evens out. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It all evens out in the end, and then we die. So. It's hard to it's hard. See, if we get down to brass tacks, if somebody wants to get enlightened or meet God, or however you have to have a framework conceptually. Everything starts out as an idea, even the idea of an enlightenment, and this is a dream. So that's funny that in the dream you dream that the dream is a dream. You're always dreaming. But at some point, understanding is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Understanding takes you to the next level, no matter what level you're on. No matter what level you're on. Yeah.
So that's the end of the more biographical section of this conversation. He mentioned having lived the cuckoo's nest, and he actually did tell me that story, but it was about 15 minutes long, so I pulled it from the main episode, but I will post it as a bonus content in the Avenues of Awakening website. You'll find it there. Anyway, let's move on now. We'll shift to some conversation about healing and more philosophical insights and some of the wisdom he's gathered over the years.
Like this question, what makes a good, number 11, advice for people seeking healing. The first thing you need to know is what's wrong with you. See, what do you need healed? What does healing mean to you? Christ was a healer, and Edgar Casey was a healer, and Carl Jung was a healer.
That's right.
But they healed different types of problems, and so you have to get a healing. You need to know what's wrong with you, or what you believe is wrong with you. See, how did you come to the determination that you were ill, damaged, or what have you? And then what can be done about it? And then how do you go about doing it?
I think that's one of the questions of this whole season that I'm doing is there's so, these days everyone's inventing and coming up with new modalities, right?
Right.
And saying, oh, you need this, or no, you need this. And your question actually says, how do you know which of these to go to work with? Or, that was the one from our previous episode when, for example, maybe, oh, I'm anxious, I'm always feeling anxiety. Well, do you go get a prescription medicine, for a psychologist, or do you have genetic differences? Are you drinking too much coffee? Where do you start?
Or both.
Or all of the above. Yeah.
Or all of the above. You are a product of your environment, and what your immediate environment is your psyche, or wherever
Right.
your thoughts, wherever it is your thoughts are stored or occurring.
That's right.
That's your immediate environment. And then your second level is your body. And your third level is, your home, where your clothes are, what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then it goes on from there, and then it gets out to your community. So how many, it's hard. Now, which part is sick? You have to constantly be evaluating yourself, what your body's telling you and what your psyche is telling you, and then what's your mind telling me, what do you got to do? And it helps to build healthy habits, or routines, but then don't get stuck in routines.
Yeah.
Psychologically, I don't feel good if I don't get one thing done. Anything.
Yeah.
Making the bed, doing the dishes, cleaning the kitchen, straightening the place up doesn't count. I got to get something else done.
Immediately, I get a hit. Number one, your feeling of self-efficacy, right? Your feeling of self-creation, cultivation of character is key to happiness, of being a creator. You see what I'm saying? So like, we are creators fundamentally. Not exercising that, I believe, is not expressing our fundamental essence. And so this is what I'm saying, talking with you. It's not just like, oh, he's depressed, get on Prozac or go get some sunlight. Yeah, maybe so. But like, that's the things that most people don't talk about now. Literally making your bed in the morning could be a perfect little seed of efficacy, or getting that job or whatever, going to volunteer. And people don't want to think that actually contributes to health and well-being,
I know.
right?
See, they're setting the bar too high. You got to set the bar low enough that you can do it at your present level. See, you're going to be doing something anyway. And the way I look at it is like, I had to, I wanted to go out this morning. I straightened everything up before I go, and I got everything done. I got my coffee made. I got my grounds dumped. I got everything cleaned up. See? And then, okay, now I'm ready to work. You're setting yourself in the blocks. I get my place neat. And so it's just like practice. What word am I looking for? Practice making your immediate environment, like your living environment, let's say, practice making your living environment efficient and easy to navigate and
effective,
pleasant. I'll tell you what, there is there is no place in my apartment I don't mind sitting. I can sit on my bed and look toward the front, the back. In other words, I have everything arranged. I like looking at it. Everything's in its place. Of course, it's covered with dust. That's the shame. But, and the pictures, they hang straight and make your environment should make you feel good.
Right.
Just like, do you wear shoes that are too tight? No. Well, that's an environment for your foot. You got to get some of them barefoot shoes.
Yep.
Get a pair of barefoot shoes. They'll change your life. Yeah. In a way, the way I feel about healing is, you must find, you got to find your own way to happiness. What is being happy? Being happy is being free from desire and fear. It's just it's so beautiful to me. I ride my loops, but I go right by the Ball Diamond, and the parents are all there, and the kids, and some of the kids get little kids. They're like, they're only 3 feet high or 4 feet high. You know what I mean? They're just little kids playing ball. They got uniforms and hats, and the parents are cheering, and they might have a coach out there from behind the net, and he pitches, and then some of them the kids are pitching, and it's just, I had a friend who was awake, who recently passed away. He described God to me, and he's the best way to describe God is the sound of a child laughing. See? And it's true, because you cannot, the language, i.e. words,
right,
was developed by the mind for the mind to keep the mind in business.
Yeah.
You cannot describe, and reality, capital R, is way away from that. It's completely different than that.
Yeah.
It's not that. You can't describe it with words. It's beyond. And Mr. Tagada said the best way to describe it is I am, but it's beyond that. See? It's a simple thing. And Mr. Tagada calls it your natural state.
You actually have me going down this idea, and my heart's opening up a lot right now as you describe children laughing. And it's this sense of healing that there's the big, intentional, contrived healing, I guess we'd say, go to your acupuncturist, go to your yoga class, go take your nutrition, that stuff that seems like deliberate and there's a reason for it. But why I wanted to talk with you, I'm realizing this now, is that you have very simple, natural ways of feeling that what we might call healing or connection. And I think that's the point where awakening and healing intersect, because fundamentally it's about unifying. You're breaking down walls, you've opening the heart, and the child laughing is healing, and it's expressing joy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or your bike ride, the butterfly during your bike ride, or these places. And so you can't separate what we call healing from this sense of being opened up to something greater, right? It's the same process.
That is the process. Yeah. Here's how Rose said it to me. We were going out, me and him in his van, going from West Virginia to California. That was a fun trip, let me tell you. And he's driving, and we're out in the painted desert, somewhere out there. He says, Casari, you got to be sensitive. And I said, I'm trying to be more sensitive, Mr. Rose. I'm trying to be more sensitive. And he says, you have to, and see here, I can still hear him say it. You have to allow yourself to be more sensitive. So what's the difference? Me trying to be sensitive, whatever trying meant to me, trying to attend to things, Or what did he mean by, you look up the word allow, and you go, what does it mean to allow yourself to be sensitive? Well, who's allowing what to do what? And it can take you into the silence between thoughts. That's where the magic is. The space between two thoughts is eternity.
One of the reasons I really like talking with you is you always have a very alternative perspective on, for example, what is meant by healing. So some of the ones I've heard today are not what kind of the angle I had been going on this season, but it was like usefulness and service. You've mentioned these things. You've mentioned, standing up for yourself. You've mentioned challenges, taking on challenges at your different jobs. You've mentioned toughness, but also kindness. And I think kindness can be healing, And so you're showing these different things that also, you've talked about poignancy, looking at, the butterfly or the children playing and laughing,
right.
Yeah. And all of these to me are, feel like they're nourishing, healing, in that way. So I would ask you now, what is true healing? What does that mean?
Oh, boy, there's a...
Or what pops to mind?
Well, the first thing that hit me is, why do we need healing? See? Because you look, most babies are born healthy and happy.
Right.
And something happens. So healing is, you got to figure out why you feel the way you have to figure out why you feel the way you do. But then you got to know the depth of the wound before you can heal it. So if I'm wounded that much that I'll chew myself out for a half hour over something, that's how pain takes you deeper than pleasure, ecstasy. You just, whatever endeavor, it doesn't make a difference if, well, this is only my job and I hate my job, I'll do my spiritual work when I get home. No, you're doing your spiritual work right that moment with that thought is just where you don't want to go, Because if you have that thought, you're not doing anything. You're just, like Rose would say, you're just playing. You guys are just playing around, and so it has to be your action has to be in harmony with your stated beliefs, or at least projected. If you're trying to, in other words, me, if I'm trying to be a salesman, you can count on being the best damn salesman I ever know how to be. In other words, like I'm doing the best job I can do right this moment, because this is because you asked me to. See, I can't do any better than this. That's Rose's advice. You keep putting one foot in front of the other. Get up one more time, then you fall down. Because what's the alternative? You're going to die anyway.
Yeah.
You can make difference in the world by making a difference in one life at a time, and even your own life, you know? I'm riding my bicycle around, okay, and I rode yesterday. It was 50. And I've seen this guy multiple times. It's one guy, and he's got his son he's probably about one of those 3.5 foot high kids. And the old man is out on the pitcher's mound. He's got a whole bucket of baseballs, and the kid is in there with a ball bat, and he pitches to him. I said, it is so beautiful to me. It makes me cry because he's working with his son. Look at that, see?
Yeah.
You know, I never had that, but and to me, that's just so beautiful that I get to see it.
Yeah.
Why would that be? Why would I feel that way? You tell me. But my cup runneth over every single day. That's what healing is. You are restored to your childlike nature. You are restored to your original face, whatever you want to call it.
You're able to see these moments, this energy, this embodiment of love. You see it in the workmanship in the architecture. You see it in the father with his son, you know. You see it in the person working hard at the grocery store, maybe, you know. And when you see the father with the son, it's like, what was the term? It's like our heart, the human level heart can't hold it. It's actually just grace. That's grace because you don't deserve it, right? Like Michael does not deserve this beauty, and yet you still have it. I still give it to you. You know, it's not about deserving. It's because this is who I am as love.
Wow.
Either you're blown wide open or you have to cry
or both.
Amazing
or
grace,
both.
You know, amazing grace.
You know, that is a wonderful way to sum that up. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's just, and that's, and you know, the innocence of children, you know, it should be protected because,
yes,
because it's, great. I see. I'd never used the word grace once. I totally but Amazing Grace. I listened to that too. I think it's who sings it. There's a real good one on there. Oh, it's some famous singer. I can't think of her name, but that's in my mix. Yeah, how sweet the sound.
Yes, and I've heard some Buddhists talk about the grace of teachers. Likewise, it's not that you've done anything to deserve it; it's their grace. And I feel like we've both been very graced in this lifetime.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's beyond words because nostalgia. It's seen in Rose. This is the key. It really is the key. If you know, is engage in activities that allow yourself, you know, to experience the full emotion of nostalgia. Nostalgia is the window to the soul. If you read poetry, the right poetry, Roses and out loud, it's actually a guided meditation. And see, when those two words hit me, I had to run out here and write it down. You know, I got a bunch of stuff done today, and this is one of them. But it's a guided meditation for the reader, and it also came, especially for the reader. If you know, you read it like your life depends on it. You know what I mean? Not just and not silently. It has to be out loud. Read it with passion, like you're an actor on the stage. So when a person reads a poem, a person should cry every day at least, you know, or once a week, just to clear your tear ducts, you know. And if a person reads a poem like that friendship poem, just whatever, you know, poetry that encourages the nostalgic mood in the individual reader. So, and you know, everybody has their own most likely somewhere, but
Yeah.
poetry. But we could recommend them. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because that was the first time that thought has ever occurred to me.
At this point, Michael wanted to share Rose's poem with us entitled Friendship. And I'll leave a link to Rose's book of poetry in the show notes. Let's have a listen.
Anyone who ever met Rose or knew Rose in any aspect of life, they all knew that Rose valued few things in life, and uppermost, aside from truth, was friendship. And that's the title, Friendship. I passed through a deep crevice at twilight, and I saw a narrow vista of trees, magical in the mists, vocal to the hush of meaning, whispering to the wisdom of shades, of degrees, before the backdrop of eternity. And I had a friend, whose dust with mine was not the bond, whose love with mine was not the bond, whose teaching with me was not the bond. Both of us had been to this same place, to the twilight in the narrow crevice. And because of this place, we are eternal.
How's that?
Good.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think a person's your obligation, your obligation for being born human is to discover your essence. Because you might come back as a poodle next dimension, next time. But the individual, you must be an anthropologist, and you only study one life, yours.
I think that's one of the main takeaways I get from Jim Burns's book. I mean, he's been to the other side in more ways than one,
Yeah,
and
I know.
he insists in that book as his founding belief principle, I think that got him through it all, is that he says, if you're able to catch it, your spirit is always trying to bring you home. And that can mean awakening and that can mean healing. And he's been through both, and I just really think that's one of the starting points is you got to start to listen. We have tremendous powers of healing, I believe, but do we ever give them the time of day, to emerge?
Well, sure, but what makes a good healer? A good healer has to be a good salesperson, really,
I love it.
and because, you basically have to help people believe but you also have to be sensitive to energy too, people's energy, and you got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to do anything. But you can't do it. You can't do it to become a famous healer,
right,
either. There was a fellow in Akron, Ohio named Ernest Ainsley, a long time ago, and there was a big church which is now deserted. I think, they have a video that's just empty. But I went up there with a friend of mine, a guy who lived in the same apartment building. He was on crutches. He twisted, I don't know, broke his ankle, twisted his ankle, but he was, he'd been on crutches, and it was bothering him a lot because we used to play tennis and stuff. And he stood in line with a bunch of people up on this. He says, "What do I got to lose?" And he stood in line, and he said that, or Ainsley came down the line. He put his hand on his head and he said, "Damn, it felt like an electric shock," and he fell. He fell backwards, and somebody caught him, and he carried his crutches back to the car.
Wow.
Yeah. So I witnessed some of that kind of stuff, and
yeah. It's like so much of you have to be open to the medicine or the healing, and I think it's also really interesting, like which quote medicine are we allowed to believe in, depending what's your background, what's your belief, who pays your bills, who pays your money. So, does the traditional Western doctor believe in energy healing? Can, liberals believe in faith healing, laying on of hands, prayer, and all these different pigeonhole, we pigeonhole ourselves. Yeah. And I think that's to our detriment.
It's suffering. There's so many people are suffering, and it's suffering is to be born. Even we're born into suffering, and our whole life is a mad scramble. Like in my case, I sent you a picture. Damaged goods. Did you ever hear that expression?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, today's calendar, from the I have a Zig Ziglar thing up, and I'll just read it to you. It's very interesting. To enjoy your work and to accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God, Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 19. We've talked for more than a few hours over the course of these calls. I never mentioned the word grace, and that really struck me. I know I'm blessed, and I'm blessed every day, and I get up in the morning and I give Thanksgiving, and I'm happy, I'm content, but I just didn't use the word grace. Although "Amazing Grace" is one of my favorite hymns, and I sing it when I ride my bike, so. But that's what it is, I would guess, but my path was devotional due to my, my damaged goods situation, and it worked for me to the degree that I'm satisfied with the way things are, something like that.
Did you ever have to forgive yourself, or would you say you love yourself at this point? How does that?
Well, see, that's hard because, there's no self to love, but do I love my, let's say, presentation of self in everyday life? Like when I go out to the store or to the post office, I like that guy because he's nice to people. Yeah. And he's not arrogant, and he doesn't panic much anymore. But as a spiritual seeker, if you take a step back, you can watch that, like Bob Ferguson, the little man will never know me, I forget exactly how he said it, but it was something like that. I know him, but he'll never know me. And you can watch yourself struggle, see, and so you're over here and you're watching that little guy, and you're feeling the pain he feels, and you're feeling the joy he feels, but then all of a sudden joy becomes a thing apart, and life is full of evil and bad and everything ugly, but it's also full of strength and heroism and beauty and kindness and loyalty. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and somewhere in between there is nirvana. Yeah. It's all good, Thomas. I really appreciate your taking all your time and putting all your energy into this, and I hope I hope it's meets your expectations.
100%. Yep, 100%. I appreciate you coming on as well.
It is amazing, though. Rose's the TAT Foundation is, gotten bigger, and it's turned into not a movement, but it's turned into a viable. I recommend anybody and everybody to get in touch with the TAT Foundation, or the TAT's. It's the TAT Foundation, and it's the real thing that will appeal to some. That's all. Yeah. Well, sir, thank you a million times over.
Thank you as well, Michael. It's always a good conversation with you.
All right. We'll catch up soon again.
Much love,
okay?
Michael. Yeah. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I wanted to thank Michael for being on the show, and also thank you for tuning in and listening. I've left a number of resources and links in the show notes, so be sure to check that out, including links to sites about Mr. Rose and the TAT Foundation, Michael's email address, and a few other books that we referenced during the conversation. If you go to the episode page, I've also shared a photograph of a series of books that Michael is happy to send to you if you're so interested. You can send either of us an email. Otherwise, I wish you all the best, and I hope you find the right balance between self-love, self-forgiveness, self-acceptance with any path of development or pattern adjustments you find yourself on. Much love and all the best.